And we're back
Yeah, it's been a long,
after
long wait.
a little hiatus. This is a
Yeah.
very special one. Final Fantasy VII. Jason's finished it. I finished it about 2 weeks ago.
It's a game.
It is a video game, that's true.
It's a game, and off microphone, off camera, quote unquote. Like, we've had some discussions. Not all of them have been civil, but let's try and keep it civil. And I can actually say I finished the game now. So whatever I say now, I feel justified in saying, because whatever I said before, I'd always be kind of like, yeah, but I haven't finished it. But now I kind of feel comfortable saying my piece. So why don't we? It's bad to start with a score. Why don't we start with just our general opinions about the game, like kind of just short, 30-second to to a minute kind of thing. Just kind of, yeah. Why don't you start? What's your just brief? If you had to explain this game to a guy who only had 30 seconds, like, and your opinions on it, what would you say?
See, if I were to say what this game is to somebody who doesn't know what it is, I'd have to spoil Final Fantasy VII for them.
Yeah, I don't mean like, I mean more like, just if the guy said to you, "Hey man, I've got 30 seconds, I got a dash. What did you think about this game? Like,
What did I
did you
think about
enjoy
this
it?"
game?
Yeah.
I initially my initial thoughts while playing the game was changing constantly. There were parts where I were absolutely hating it. I thought it was a drag, and then after that, I thought back at it and I thought I didn't really hate that area as much. I was always having fun with the combat, with some exceptions. There were some parts that I really thought the combat was bad, but overall it is a fun game for all it is. Production quality wise, I don't think many other games will hit this. There are parts of this game that just, it makes other games look bad. So yeah, I'd definitely say it's a contender for Game of the Year this year, but not many things are coming out this year. So, so I'd say to him, go and play it. But I would say to him as well, play Final Fantasy VII first. Play that original game, because your enjoyment of this game is entirely dependent on whether you like Final Fantasy VII. So that's the problem. That's why throughout the entire time I was telling Jason, just finish the game and then we can talk about it. Just finish the game. Because there are so many parts of this game, especially story-wise, that you just can't talk about. Because it doesn't make sense until you finish it. Which I hope we'll get into. This is more of like a overall thoughts on the game for the cast, which is why I think we should segment it. Let's talk about gameplay first.
Okay, well, that leads well into what I was going to say. So if I had to give my brief analysis, I would say this game is a 30-hour, 40 to 45 if you do the side quest, is a 30-hour slog of getting to the good parts.
Yeah. Okay.
The good parts being the unlocking of new music pieces, the getting to like meaty lore and story, which is very good in this game. And I'd actually disagree with you. I would say you can enjoy it even if you didn't play the original game.
I will. Okay.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a bit, but the overall and what we're going to get into now is and it's a slog to actually get to the good parts of the gameplay. Like you, there are certain fights that I just hated, but I dare say I probably disliked a lot more of the combat than you did. But I think that a lot of the game is just waiting to get to something good. But yeah, you said you wanted to talk about the gameplay, so should we do that?
Yeah. So anybody?
So gameplay, combat, right?
Yeah. So I'd say that's the. I mean, the rest of the game is just running around like it's an RPG. Okay, so I'm coming from a background of kind of like, I play Kingdom Hearts. I like action games. I think this is a really cool like combination of a more turn-based system and an action system. I think it really does make you think about what you need to do. You can't really enter a lot of these fights without having a clear strategy of what you want to do and how your characters are built. You can't just mash your way through this game. You'll hit a point, you'll hit a wall, and it just won't let you go past it until you realize, oh wait, I can't just mash here. Which is what a lot of people were afraid of. I was afraid of it because Final Fantasy XV's combat is literally that.
The game is very, very good at stopping you from just mindlessly slamming square. And we had a small discussion when I first started playing the game, and probably in our last podcast, when I said, and I quote, and this is not necessarily what I think now, but I said the game encourages you to mash. And that was because in the early stages of the game, you can just mash and you can get through. But it was kind of more than that. So, and I've kind of thought about why I said that. The reason I said that is the game encourages you to mash because in the early stages, because yes, you can in the early stages because enemies they're just there to give you a feel, so they're not very difficult. But the way the ATB system works is it's slow and intentionally slow. It's slow to charge up, right? And if you want to charge your ATB, you got to be hitting stuff. You got to be hitting square. So that kind of leads me. That led me when I was playing the game into kind of a style of play. So I'd get into a fight and I'd play very conservatively because, you need to think about what you do. But it would just be a lot of me just standing around, like, to figure out attack patterns. And for me, like, that's not very fun. So, there'll be times when I get into a fight and I think, I just got to hit them, man. Like, I should probably wait and find out what they're doing. Because some of these enemies, if you don't wait and, figure out what they're doing, you're going to get rolled.
You'll get, like, put to sleep, or, like, you'll be... Yeah.
Like, but at the same time, the game gave me a very hard decision between, do I want to actually play the game, or do I want to wait a bit so I can be more efficient, if you know what I mean? So that particular enemy, the blue goo, so they use this move called Slumber Spume.
Yeah. And if you'll get caught by that, like, on your first playthrough, it will happen. Guaranteed.
And then it puts you to sleep and you get just rolled, right? So yeah, that's what I kind of meant when I said the game encourages you to mash. And even in the later stages, so obviously there are going to be spoilers in this review or whatever with the talk. So up until the very end, like with the Rufus Shinra fight, where you fight him and his dog, you obviously have to wait and like watch what he does, otherwise you'll get destroyed, right? So I'll just be standing there, just tanking hits, just to kind of figure out what was going on. And for me, that, and I dare say for other people, that wasn't very fun, because
you didn't
standing
around...
Did
you not like the Rufus fight?
The Rufus fight, like, when it kind of... you know what? No, I didn't. I really didn't. Because the fight is in phases, right? Phase 1 is kill the dog, because, the dog will protect Rufus, and Rufus controls the dog. You kill the dog, and then it's just this kind of... And this is a game where some of the combat mechanics are really cool, some of them. And then this Rufus fight was just... It was literally... Rufus he's got a shotgun that has 4 shots, roughly. You let him do 4 shots.
You have to attack him while he's reloading, yeah.
While he's reloading, yeah. And then he reloads, and you got to back off. Because if you try attacking him when he's not reloading, he'll parry every hit you do. So it was, wait 4 shots, hit him like 3 times, and then run away.
Oh, see, did you assess him?
I did. No.
You're meant to braver him. If you braver him, if you stagger him, it's the only ability that you'll have like guaranteed no matter what in that game, because every other ability is optional.
I figured that one out because for the Rufus section, like I just didn't have assess on Cloud, for whatever reason, and
right. In assess, they literally tell you that one attack will stagger this guy instantly.
Yeah, so there is also an issue with assess, which I'll get into later. But yeah, I did eventually figure that out. But like, it wasn't fun just kind of chilling. Like before I discovered the braver tech, quote unquote, and not everyone's going to have assess. Whether they should or not is again another discussion for later. But yeah, it wasn't fun just waiting, hitting, wailing on him. And then even when I did figure out braver would stagger him, I'd stagger him, wail on him for a bit, and then I'd have to dart back, wait again, from the reload. But it just wasn't very. It wasn't fun for me at all. What was my original point? Yeah, there's a lot of waiting around to assess different attack patterns in this game. And now I get on to the assess point. But before I do, I've been talking for a while. Is there anything you want to say in regards to what I've just said right now?
I think this game suffers from the same problem that Kingdom Hearts does, where the combat doesn't really show its like what it can do until you have fully built characters. It's really frustrating. Like, I hate this in Kingdom Hearts, where I'm like going through the first like 2/3 of the game with this like, especially in Kingdom Hearts 2. No, Kingdom Hearts 1, sorry. Where I've just got this weak character that like I just can't do anything with, and then I get everything, and then finally I can play this game. Same with Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry 3, I hate playing through Devil May Cry 3 on a new save file because I've got nothing to do. Like I've got no moves, I've got no abilities. It's very frustrating. And then there are fights in like, especially Kingdom Hearts 2, where this would be made so much more easier with a specific ability. So, okay, a very good example of this is Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 2, right? You can fight.
He's a super boss, right?
Yeah, he's a super boss. So yeah, like the problem with Kingdom Hearts 2, he's the only super boss. And then the system really shines towards the I'm bringing this up like this is important because I think there's like lots of overlap with the way how they've designed this game in Kingdom Hearts. The ATB materia.
ATB boost.
You have like, and the various base Kingdom Hearts 2 you can dodge. Dodge roll just wasn't a thing. Mate, you can rinse. You had like fights things that would move you out of the way, but you didn't have a dodge roll. Give you ATB for free. That made the Sephiroth fight your commands. Like it just did. Like, and people have like figured out like how to essentially never be like have no downtime. Sephiroth is a cakewalk. Now I could probably play through base Kingdom Hearts 2. To me, makes it seem like that. Like he just isn't. If you want your characters to be built for utility, you're going to be waiting around a lot. But if you have characters that have like 1 to 2 offensive materia, everything else is built towards like optimization in terms of time, you can do that. And I think that's really cool. I think that's really cool because it means that you can play however you want within like the confines of the game system. It's not forcing you to do something. Because I went through the entire game without using a single ATB materia.
Yeah. So on that front, like I kind of disagree. You can get through the game without using certain materia and without doing certain things, like playing the way you want to play. But it's so tedious if you don't have the right setup. And this is also an issue with FF13. But if you get into a fight with an enemy and you just don't happen to have the materia, you can beat it. It just takes ages.
I was going to get onto that with Hell House. Hell House, I think, is like one of the worst fights in the game. Like it was super frustrating just because it wanted me to have every elemental materia.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them.
And there's a lot of them, and it was just like, this doesn't. I hated that fight. I hated that, and there's
Hell House. There's also like, if you have, and we'll probably get into this later, if you have the worst luck, not really the worst luck, because you're never meant to really use it, it's not that good, but if you happen to fight a flying enemy without arrow, you're fucked. Like, you're really, really fucked. You know, because
flying enemies are like an issue in this game. it was very frustrating, especially when you were going up the plate in what was it, like chapter like
I just use Barrett for that.
15.
I cannot be asked to fuck around with.
It was so frustrating because there's no jump button, and I know why there's no jump button. There's no jump button, so that means you're just kind of relying on the game deciding if you can do an air attack. So it's super
which
annoying.
Is fucking like, yeah, but yeah, like if you're not prepared for certain things, it's just going to be a pain in the ass. And this is why, well, this is one of the reasons why this game, like 13, has a, you know, do you want to return to the point before this battle? Because the game fucking knows. The game knows that like some people are just going to go, yeah, shit, like I should have brought this material.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts does the same thing, man. Loads of games like this do that, where they'll just be like, "You want to go back to this point and rebuild?" Like, it just does that. I'm not annoyed at them wanting us to make sure that we are built towards certain fights. I'm more annoyed that there are like normal enemies that make you do that. I don't like how there are normal enemies that, unless I've got a very specific materia equipped and I'm just running through an area, I can't just beat it. And it's fine if it's like I have to use Cloud's like Punisher mode to parry something, or I need to like use Barrett to shoot this guy. No, it's like I need to have this materia equipped, otherwise I can't beat this enemy. It's frustrating, it makes things slow. For bosses, I think it's okay. The Hell House thing annoyed me because I didn't want to retry it. I didn't die in that fight. I didn't want to retry it, so I just brute forced it. But the thing is that I was annoyed that happened, because that fight I feel exemplifies problems with the combat system that I later found out was like, why did you do this? So that you're forcing me to waste a materia slot. I say waste, to spend a materia slot so that I can get a better thing. So the dodge, for example, the dodge in this game is really bad, but that's so that you have to invest in a materia slot for a better slot dodge, which is fine, I guess.
And you don't get parry until way after Hell House.
Which is essentially a better dodge. And I get it. To me, it seems like this game through and through has been designed to warrant multiple playthroughs, which is why I want to go through it all on hard mode. I just haven't.
The game just pisses me off. Like on the materia front, like, not only do we need certain materia, and this is like a totally different issue, but I feel like I can't not mention it now. The descriptions of things just aren't accurate, or they're not like well explained.
Yeah,
we're just not there.
Yeah.
Fucking parry is like, the way the little video clip shows it is like you block and then you parry. No, that's
it's like
bullshit.
It's like you block, you hold the block button, then you move it. Like it's
so here's
annoying.
Me trying to follow what the game has shown me to do, and then obviously I got punished for it because I was like, well, what's the point? And then there's things like, I don't know what summons do unless I actually summon them in a fight.
Yeah.
Like, what? Why? I didn't like. Why do I have to? And again, it's not like FF's like any other Final Fantasy where you can just summon something and you can find it out immediately.
That's not true. Like, Final Fantasy 15, you can't even summon without the game telling you can do it.
Okay, there you go then. I haven't played that one. Or 13. Okay, earlier Final Fantasy. Anyway, like, if I could just summon like Shiva like in a battle at the start, okay, fine. Yeah, okay. Then I'd kind of get that. Like, you're meant to use it to find out. But in this game, they're like gambits. But the thing is, I will not know what this gambit does until I've actually like summoned it, which is not the point. You're meant to like use a gambit to think, oh shit, yeah, I know this does a particular thing, so it can help me out in this fight. But as it is, I can't go into the menu and go, oh, so Shiva is 1 ATB and she's good at like, enhancing stagger. Fat Chocobo is basically just a damage machine. No, you have to summon it and figure it out. As a result, I didn't really like. I never used the summons.
That's like a problem only for your first time using it. After that, it's no longer a problem.
Of course, but also, and I think this needs to be mentioned. Like, the option to just review should be there.
Yeah, it should just be there. Yeah,
I can remember that Fat Chocobo does X and Y, but some people may not. And
they should at least just have their abilities just there for you to look at.
exactly, that's all I asked for.
Yeah.
Again, like fuck it, let's just make it organic. There's no point in trying to like. Also, on that, yeah, like the UI and the quality of life in this game is fucking horrendous.
Yeah,
it's really bad.
It especially becomes apparent in the chapter select in the post game.
You see, I finished the game, got the chapter select, and I was like, this is just so long.
The chapter select is really, really frustrating because it's like, I would rather them have just like put me in chapter 14 before I go up the plate, give me Aerith, ignore all story stuff, and then just have all the quests unlocked and let me fast travel to every area in the game. Just give me that. But no, I have to go to a chapter, start the chapter from the start, and play through to the point of where I want to get to. It's super frustrating. I would rather just do a whole new playthrough of the game. So
what the game kind of shows you at the end is things you've missed, and one of them, it's very minor, but if an example is the dresses you can get,
the dresses,
Cloud, Tifa, and if you're an achievement hunter, which I'm not, then that's important. But if you want to get,
but it shows that the game wants you to play through the game 3 times. Like it wants you to do it at least 3 times.
It's not as bad of Tifa because her dress choice is based on one dialogue option. Fucking Aerith, like to get her best dress, do all the quests, right? To get her medium dress, you got to do like half the quests. And then to get her shitty dress, but one for completion nonetheless, you do like 2 quests or none, which means I've got to go through chapter, whatever it was, chapter 8, yeah, and then do half the quests, and then do chapter 8 again, and just do 2 quests that I've probably done before anyway. It's tedious.
Like, it's just tedious, yeah. The game's filled with just this ridiculous amount of padding.
And there's also... there are things that this game just shouldn't, like, it's 2020, shouldn't be doing. Like, fucking... And I've been trying to not make comparisons between the original game, because I know that is a cause of contention when you review games like this, but Final Fantasy VII Original, if you wanted to swap out materia, like, it gave you a really, like, easy menu to use, where you just see everyone's materia, and you can remove everyone's materia with, like, 2 button presses for each character. You just remove all the materia, right? In this game, you've got to fucking open up the materia menu, open up like the everyone's materia menu, and manually remove everything. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I tried to find any other option to do that.
I feel like I've not done it in my game, but I feel like I've seen that, where there is a materia menu that has everyone's materia like on the screen.
There is. No, that exists. I'm not doubting that, and that is a good thing, but you can't just, there's not like one button you can press to remove.
Yeah, I agree. I think that should be there. Especially there are points in the game where, unless you've like got characters with maxed out materia, or like you've got them all equipped properly, you're swapping materia out like every 10-15 minutes.
The worst fucking area for this is
Hojo's lab.
The drum. You know how fucking annoying that was? Like, not only I hate like party switching shenanigans anyway.
You don't like that?
Like party switching shenanigans, I just don't like.
I thought that was cool. I thought the concept was cool. I did not like the
execution.
The execution of it. So like, I think it's going to be really cool in the next few games where you have all the party there. I reckon they're going to commit to having every person, every party member on screen at once, right? They're not going to do like the whole phasing into one character thing. They're going to have everyone on screen, and they'll have areas. Like, I think that this the Bizarro Sephiroth fight, if it happens, I think could be a really cool fight.
Yeah.
So, I think this is them experimenting with how they would do it.
It's not. I don't have a problem. Like, okay, so the problem I have with party switching is not a fault with the game. It's just a preference. So this is not something that I am, downgrading the game for. But what I am faulting the game for is this party switching system where you've got to fucking swap out materia for, like you said, you got to swap this materia up, and you got to do like 4 times because you switch between them.
Yeah, it's really annoying, and it's really frustrating.
And there's, sorry, go on, yeah.
And I get it from like They are probably doing this because they have ideas of how they want the next few games to be. So it would make more sense to have a system like this if you've got like 7 party members and they all do individual roles and they're all built differently. However, when you have a portion of this game where it takes away Aerith for so long,
and Barrett for
and
ages
Barrett,
as well.
like you're just going to take all of their material away from them. But it's different if you're going through a dungeon and you have everyone, and like you have like 3 distinct parties running through the same area. It makes sense for you to build them all differently. Did you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, so they're trying to promote like individualism in terms of
exactly.
How you build the
However, the problem is that the game in a game where the story didn't exist, this would work better. However, the story exists and it changes the way how things work. So it's like they take away Aerith, that's your dedicated healer. Then Barrett becomes your healer pretty much, right? Like,
so this game, if it is trying to push individualism in terms of characters, it fails horribly.
I'm not saying the game, I'm saying the systems do, but the actual story and the way how they've like taken away characters, or they'll like change where characters are, it promotes something that they are not doing. So it's essentially the game itself is not promoting how it wants you to use these systems. So yeah, it has failed in that regard, and it's really annoying. If it was quick and if it was simple, then there would be no problem, but it's not. It's cumbersome, the UI is slow. And
we've talked about that, right? It's because they want it to look cool, pretty much.
Yeah, they wanted it to look cool, but I also think that's probably due to loading, which is like a huge problem with this game. Like, where there's so many sections that are very clearly just loading sections for the next part. And I mean, this is a problem with the consoles, man. Like, we've been on these consoles for nearly 7 years, and they're still using slow ass hard drives.
Definitely held back by its hardware.
Yeah,
but the fucked up thing is, I don't feel like faster loading times and the removal of like fucking crawling underneath an overturned box, these sections, if they weren't, I don't think my enjoyment of the game would have been that much improved. Because
that's fair. Like I wouldn't contest that.
It's a really, really tedious game.
There are points in the game where it's tedious. I'm just wanting to get to the next part. Like, it is. But the points where it does do good, the points where it does hit, I think it does it better than anything I've played in a long time.
Yeah.
The moments that it knows that it's good, the moments that it wants you to be excited for, like the whole bombing run, I think is brilliantly executed.
The fight with Hojo's specimen, the one you see in the original game, like that was really fun for me. But
that was a really cool fight.
I've got to say that near like the second half of the game, when I got to the cool moments, I was just so demotivated. Like, okay, here's something we talked about before. We've talked about every fight is special, right? Because every fight you got to think about what you got to do. And for me, I know we disagreed on this, but for me, that was just, I didn't like that because I had to think so hard for every fight. When I had to think hard about the special, like big boss fight, it didn't feel like it didn't feel special. It just felt like it felt like an up jump to regular enemy encounter.
See, I would disagree just because of the whole presentation of the fight. The presentation of those boss fights are like insane. Like, even like the fights that were just random enemy robot boss in the original game were made into huge like encounters.
Yeah.
They made the Hell House into a boss.
Yeah. That was cool. And I still enjoyed it. It just didn't feel, I felt like it could have been cooler. Because one of my things,
like, what do you mean by cooler?
So one of my things with JRPGs in general is like the slow build up to this inevitable boss fight. You know, I'm like, oh shit, like this boss fight is going to be crazy. And when I'm just breezing through regular enemies, and let's not like, okay, when I say breezing through, I mean like just kind of beating them without really like struggling. Like when I beat these regular enemies, I'm like, oh shit, but the boss is going to really test my skills.
But I think that's to do with like how action games are made, though.
Mm.
Like, you can't just have like fodder enemies all the time. It just becomes boring. It just
Of
becomes
course.
boring. Like, if that were the case, if the rest of the enemies were just mashable enemies that you didn't need to think about. Like, there are certain enemies in this game that I hate fighting, but for the most part, I'm fine with fighting them, and I think it's quite fun. I think a lot of these encounters are fun, right?
I'm not saying make them mashable. I'm saying like some of them are just needlessly complex.
No, they're
Like,
not. They're not complex. They just have a win condition, and if you don't fulfill that win condition, then that's it. Like, you're gonna have a hard time fighting this, and that's it. And then that just becomes an issue when you're running through an area again. That's it. That's my problem with it. If you're playing through the game, like, and it's your first time playing through it, then I don't have an issue with a lot of these fights. It's just, I wish there were less of these, like, win-lose enemies. I reckon they were done just because, like, it means that each encounter is not necessarily like I played through the Midgard part of FF7 recently. That whole thing you can pretty much just go through just auto attacking everything. Like, that's what it felt like. Like, I was using magic just to see if I could, and just because I wanted to see something different. That whole Midgard section is easy. Like, it's really easy.
I will freely admit, one of my, and this is not, though the game does have problems with the combat, one of my biggest problems with this game's combat is purely, and this is on me, it's not a problem with the game, it's on me. It's because I'm not really a fan of action games. So I just want to put that out there. I fully acknowledge that that is going to have a bias on my enjoyment. So, you know what, you're right. Like, they're not complex, they're just win conditions, and I guess I just prefer the format of kind of enemies you can just auto attack to get to the big one. That's not a fault of the game. So yeah, that
Like,
is
that is a purely taste thing, I think. I think that's due to taste more so than anything else.
I feel like for an objective review of a game, it would not be fair then for me to bring up that issue.
It's
However,
it's why I would make the argument this is a turn-based game with action elements, but it's not fully turn-based.
There are other issues, however, which go beyond my enjoyment of things, and we've talked about this in length. The camera.
The camera's an issue, yeah, for sure.
The camera in fights is a pain.
It is frustrating. It doesn't zoom out far enough, for sure. It doesn't zoom out far enough.
It doesn't zoom out far enough. And a lot of the fights are multi-encounter fights, like multi-enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like you're trying to deal with one thing, and then like two other enemies will fucking come out of nowhere and slap you in the ass, and you're like, okay. I couldn't really see that coming because of the camera. And even when you can, it's like you can't do anything about it because you're trying to take down this one enemy. And this is the point when you'd think, oh, like the AI will help. I don't care what anyone says, and I am being just obtuse, but the AI is shit in this game. It is really, really bad. It's horrible. Apart from these set piece moments where the designers have clearly like put in like special code inputs. I don't know how you program games. Like, they specially told these AI characters to react in certain ways. For example, the fight against the robot scorpion, where Barrett or Cloud, depending on who you're maining, is told to hide behind a pillar. The AI is just awful. Like, and even in these set piece fights, sometimes they just do stupid shit. I've told you about the fight with Leviathan, where he does the sweeping dive, and he comes for one of you, and any sane like player would just have one guy tank it and have the other two move out of the way. The fucking AI just sits there and takes it, and I'm like, why?
I agree. It is frustrating, especially when you're Barrett and they're just wailing on an enemy.
Even in moments when, like, the AI has been told to do something specifically, they still sometimes don't. When you're fighting Airbuster, it's got this big laser attack, and at least twice, my guys, and I wasn't giving them commands or anything, yeah, because obviously that would lock them into a certain string, they just took it. Uh,
Which is weird because, like, in my game, I very distinctly remember the characters moving away from Airbuster. When I played through the demo in the demo of the game with the Scorpion laser, I moved Barrett and Cloud behind those debris. I switched to them and I moved them because I didn't think the AI would do it. And then when I played through the full game, the AI did it, and it was just like, oh, is this going to happen all the way through? And then, you know, for me, with a lot of these encounters, it didn't work in terms of regular enemy encounters. But then there were the boss encounters with Airbuster. Like, I didn't get hit by the laser once in that fight.
The only fights to me that reliably, like the AI reliably did what they're meant to do, was when you fight the Arsenal in the Shinra headquarters and Robot Scorpion. Every other boss fight, there's at least one area or element where the AI could have easily just dodged or walked away or hid behind a rock, and it just didn't. And that pisses the hell out of me. And now we're going to go back to something that is on me. I like having control of my characters in RPGs. I like having control in general, right? And that is on me. That's fine. Back to objectivity. There is no reason, and I know we had a short discussion on this, there is no reason why they did not just implement a menu for like brief overarching commands for characters.
I agree. Like you know, they
like
did
stay
that
back
in
and
Kingdom
heal.
Hearts.
You can do it in fucking Tales of Exilia, which is in the same like ballpark of like crazy JRPG. Like in the Tales games, you can just tell people to do shit. So let's say during one of the segments where you've lost Aerith and Barrett is your healer, like you don't want him to be like. And to be honest, he kind of gets away with it. Okay, let's just say if you, for whatever reason, actually she's got a better spirit stat, you've made Tifa your healer. Like if you just hang back and just like take hits when you can and heal, she won't. She'll always run in. But like let's say you spec her with like MP plus, Magic plus, and heal barrier. She doesn't have the tools to stay in that fight and be efficient.
With this example, right? I would like make the argument that you're playing the game wrong. Like with Tifa, like I would just say like you're playing this character incorrectly, because you are literally limiting you. Like specifically for Tifa, like you are losing out on so much optimization of her ability to raise stagger. Like it's just it's why I would be like.
My issue is I get what you're saying, and to be honest, I did use Tifa as a damage engine. Like she wasn't really a. But my point is, if like okay, well let's use Barrett, right? You know, I don't want Barrett to be used to be like just.
Well, yeah, they obviously want like someone like Barrett to be away. It's why they've given him Lifesaver. So that he can be the tank, but he doesn't have to be in front of enemies. He just absorbs the damage elsewhere.
So, again, this is my point on control, and this is just me. I would have liked it if, for whatever reason, like I want to use Tifa as a mage. Not optimal, I know. I know fully that's not optimal. But what if I just got tired of beating shit?
No. Difference being, it's not optimal too. It's wrong. Like it's just incorrect, because this game is very clearly pushing you towards certain builds of certain characters, right? Like they are, like they're not. There's right and wrong ways to play this game. The build variety is there, and you can pretty much spec anyone to anything you want because of the way how materia works. But it's very clear that they're like, hey, this is how this character works. Like, I'm not going to put like a bunch of like HP ups to make Aerith tanky and then like try and make her into a tank. It just wouldn't work. Or like it's very clearly like they've put as much like flexibility as they can, but they very clearly have distinct roles for characters in this game. While in FF7 original, that wasn't like, they didn't force you to. Like there wasn't much gameplay pressure to force you to think about how characters worked in the base game or like in like the actual game proper. Obviously in the meta game it's there and you want to think about it, but that's why I would say it's like this game has a way of making you play and there's no like using the argument it's not optimal. I meant it's not optimal in the sense that you aren't playing this character correctly. Like, Tifa is meant to be there. She's not that tanky. That's why you have Barrett to take the hits. Cloud is just good at everything. Because that's the way they wanted to build that character.
I do agree with you. Like, you're meant to play characters in certain ways. What I then take issue is then they fucking like dangle a carrot above your head by in the weapon upgrade system, which heavily determines your stats in terms of your combat ability. They will like throw you a stick. Like, they'll throw you one weapon that does one thing best amongst all others. It's almost like they're telling me. So the weapon I'm referring to, I think, is Tifa's Mithril Knuckles.
Yeah.
It's got like, exaggeration obviously, it's got like 2 physical attack and like 2,000 magic.
Yeah, it's better
like,
at magic, yeah.
And it's kind of like, they're throwing me that bone. They're like, hey, yeah, this is a magic weapon. You can make her a magic user, but you can't. Because it doesn't really come with as much,
but okay,
with as many HP upgrades as, for example, leather gloves.
But the thing is with that, specifically with Tifa, you're using the magic. You're going to be using offensive magic, and you're not going to be laying back. You can use, like, the point of magic in this game, and it's why they give you the option to use fire, and Firiga. The quicker cast magic is pretty much instant. Like fire, like they're meant to pressure and they're meant to stagger, and then you use the higher magic to get the damage when you've done stagger, or you can use it as an opening. Like, you can use like fire, magnify, combine that with like an HP absorb or something, and you can't really die. Like, there's loads of combinations.
You can't combine.
Yes, you can.
Fire with magnify and HP absorb.
Yes, you can. So basically,
is HP absorb a blue material?
Yes, you can. So if you have fire equipped in a slot, and then you have magnify, what you do is you put another fire material into another slot, and then like whatever into that slot. The game counts the more powerful material, the more powerful fire. That's how you stack combined materia. I did not know about that until recently, and I think that's really cool. Because you can essentially, what you can do is you can, like, especially with like is it the Mithril Saber? You can, whether it's like all combined slots, you can essentially like have Cloud just be using one magic, but then have this one magic just do everything.
Yeah, I actually did that with elemental fire on the weapon, and I had magnify. No, I had like synergy fire on like the armor. Yeah, okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah,
because what it'll do is it like, I think that's really cool, because they definitely would have known that in what's it called, in playtesting. They would have known, like, that somebody would have done that in playtesting and be like, oh, this works, but they kept it in. There's loads of hidden mechanics in this game, and I love those kind of things. I love hidden mechanics.
Yeah, there's the game doesn't tell you, but you can actually like tech roll when you get knocked in the air.
Yeah,
and like, and
yeah.
I was like, oh, shit,
there's perfect parries in the game. If you block at the right time, you won't get knocked back. They'll get knocked back.
I kind of wonder though, is that a good thing?
Yes. In action games, that happens all the time. Devil May Cry has jump cancelling. It's literally got like a move that allows you to jump cancel, but it never tells you why you would do it. The game never tells you that all of your moves in the air reset once you jump cancel, but you just learn it. Like, I think there are mechanics in games that you can just have that you don't need to explicitly tell the player. Old games do this all the time. Action games do this all the time. It's the difference between a mechanic that is essential to beating the game versus a mechanic that is for higher end players. Because I think the problem is that you'll have mechanics that certain players will want to do if they've been told about them. If you tell somebody about perfect parry and they're not very good at the game, they're always going to be trying to do it. That's just what happens.
Third Strike.
Yeah, like it's just like I think there are mechanics in this game that they just don't tell people, and loads of other games they don't tell people to be like, hey, this is a hard thing to do. Let's just not have people know about this. Like combos in Street Fighter 2. They told nobody about combos in Street Fighter 2, but they kept it in because they thought it was something that like more skilled players would know how to do. And I know that's like a 30-year-old game, but like whatever. Like it's still
and
relevant.
Also, it wasn't
in
intentional
design.
at all. It was like a programming.
Yeah, that's why. Like it's one of those things where it's like, oh well, this might be something that a more skilled player can do, and it's something in game design that I think is still prevalent now. Like Doom did this, where like Doom has something where weapon switching, you can increase the speed of it, right? And weapon switching in that game basically removes all recovery frames from a weapon. So what you can do is you can shoot, switch to another weapon, shoot, and then switch back. So you can essentially have a rotation. And it trivializes encounters. Like it makes encounters just not a thing anymore. That had to have been in the game, considering how like controlled that game is design wise. So I think having like hidden mechanics and having stuff like that, I think it adds replayability, and I think it adds like depth. Like you could make
fair enough. I see it.
And I think like when I saw the video of this guy like stacking everything on fire, in my head I was like, maybe this game's meant to be played where you have like certain things that you like, very specific builds, and you're like trying to aim towards that build having a single use. And in my mind I was like, oh really? Like, but you know, I saw him go into a fight with First Strike, Fire stacked with HP Absorb, MP Absorb, and Magnify, and it was the rush in Shinra building. He like cleared that encounter like pretty much instantly, because he would just go in, cast fire, and it wouldn't be a problem. It was really interesting to watch, because people are taking this combat system like pretty far. There are also points in the game where I think like, you know, like certain enemies where stagger like goes really quickly, like Leviathan, like his stagger goes quite quickly.
Yeah, or the Sagan Prince.
You can cast stop Freezer's stagger, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, you've got to be on the ball with it though, because it's got cast time.
Exactly.
And also Leviathan. In fact, most boss enemies do have resistances to stop. And
exactly, because they know that, and they also have phases, because they know there will be players who will realize this and will just, hey, I'm going to just stack like multiple 999s on you very quickly. So yeah, I think
yeah, go on.
I think that like in a more controlled setting, I think this combat system like is really, really cool. But I think there are a lot of encounters in this game that don't really show it. I think Rufus is one of the encounters that does. I think Genova is one of the encounters that does. But I also think just because I really like that fight, from loads of other things.
First point, this does kind of tie back well into your earlier point about the combat system is only really good when you've really finished everything, right? Is that kind of the point?
Yeah, I agree. I would make that argument. Yeah,
there's that, which I have a problem with, but we don't need another problem I have with this game. I just want to kind of see. I want to have a discussion about a boss fight that I remember fresh, and then maybe we can kind of figure out some things from it. So, with Genova, I'm just going to go through the way I fought her.
Okay.
And then I want you to interject things that you think I may have been doing wrong or not doing right.
Okay.
Fair? Okay.
Yeah.
So, disclaimer, my party wasn't kitted out optimally for this, because I wasn't expecting a Genova fight. I was expecting to get through that sequence of the president, and then then I thought I'd move on to the Rufus fight and then have a chance to recover. But which is fine because some like surprises are good. So anyway, it wasn't optimal, but I had like area for healing and I had magic. T4 was geared for physical. It just wasn't optimal.
Okay.
Anyway, get into the fight. So from what I can remember, the first phase of that fight is quite.
It's fairly standard.
It's quite standard.
It's to introduce you to the boss basically.
She'll throw out like poisoned areas and stopped areas.
Yeah.
You just gotta dodge it and hit it, right?
Yeah.
And then I think in the second phase she starts summoning tentacles, and then she has a bit where she casts shield on herself.
Yep.
So the way I got around that was I had subversion. I had breach. So with the first time I got like it happened, I was like, okay, what I'll do is like I just happened to have it on Tifa at that point.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, shit. So after I got through the first shield phase, I was like, okay, fuck. What I'll do is I'll whirl on my tentacles, but before I beat the last tentacle, I'll make sure Tifa has 2 ATB bars to cast breach. Right? I'll then cast breach and then attack. Is there anything wrong with that sequence you see?
You're not meant to cast breach. I did not know you could even do that. I never even did that. You're just meant to kill all the tentacles. It has a finite number of tentacles.
Oh, fair enough.
If you go
play that fight again, then yeah.
If you do Cloud and you've got triple slash, he will one hit them. So if you do triple slash, you can like go through pretty much like half of the wave of tentacles.
The reason I didn't do that is because triple slash is like random targeting. I don't want you'll sometimes hit Genova, but it's still more. It's still faster than just running and hitting like 3 times. Yeah, the way I did that was
another way you could have you could probably do it would be fire and magnify, because it would target everything.
True. However, I was using magnify and heal for the most part.
Yeah, at that point in the fight, at that point in the game, I was using it on barrier.
Yeah. And as it is, you know, with the breach thing, it was working, but more
which is cool. I did not know you could do that. Like I just didn't.
Not, I would just kill the tentacle.
Yeah. But it's very clear that the tentacles is the normal way you do it. But I didn't know you could use breach. I thought she would be resistant to that, but that's pretty cool that you can do that.
I mean, to be honest, and I'm willing to admit this, it might not have worked because I was doing both. I was killing tentacles and casting breach.
And it wasn't working. Like
it was working, but it may have been because I was just killing the tentacles as opposed to breach. I seem to recall at least one moment when I thought I'd killed the tentacles, but I hadn't, and I cast breach on her and it worked.
That happened like once or twice to me, where I thought I killed them all, and there was like just one stray one. Like
yeah, and she spawns them like fairly regularly as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that fight, yeah, sure. I mean, there are definitely some fights in this game where I was just too eager and I got punished, and that's fine. Like that's on me. That's not the game's fault. The fight in the distortion area against those like time raves, you know what I'm talking about, right? The green, yellow, blue, red one. The weird
you mean the whispers?
Yeah, the whispers.
The end game. Well, let's leave that. Let's not talk about that right now, because I feel like we're missing a lot. We're talking about the gameplay of the game quite a lot. I feel like that part of the game is in itself an anomaly in that game.
Well, the reason I'm talking about the gameplay so much is because it's pretty much the only thing with this game I have an issue with. I pretty much love everything else apart from the shitty UI, but it's the gameplay that is the biggest, like...
What I find quite interesting is that most people tend to have problems with everything else in the game and not necessarily the gameplay.
Which is weird.
You're right? Like a real outlier with that. Which is why like when you were talking about how much you didn't like points in the game, I was like, crap, he's gonna hate everything about this game.
Like honestly, apart from some okay, let's move away from gameplay. There was that one famous point that I talked about with you where Cloud sees Sephiroth in like in the end of chapter 1.
Yeah.
And Cloud is like, and Sephiroth's like, I sliced my cold steel into your mother's flesh. I was like, why? We didn't need that bit of exposition.
So this is why I would say to anybody, this is why I didn't even try to reboot your crit like that. I was just like, because I didn't like it initially until I finished the game. and until things kind of started making sense. So this is a sequel.
Before you get into this, I just want to make sure my problem isn't with the fact that Sephiroth appeared there. It's more the lines that he said.
Right. But I think
yeah.
there's a reason why that character did that. So essentially, this is a sequel. This is what the 5th mainline entry into the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, right? It went Final Fantasy VII, and then it was it Advent Children, Crisis Core before Crisis, and this, right?
If you really want to get, so if you say main game, if you say mainline as in everything, we've got
entries. Dirge of Cerberus as well.
We have FF7, we have Before Crisis. It's a mobile game, but it's still like pretty important.
Didn't it go Advent Children, Crisis Core, Before Crisis, and then Dirge of Cerberus?
I don't know the order, but we have 7 Before Crisis, Advent Children, Dirge of Cerberus, Crisis Core, and that's it.
So the reason why I don't necessarily now have a problem with Sephiroth appearing throughout the game is because the implication being, especially with the ending of that game, is that is not the Sephiroth that's in Northern Crater.
Yeah.
That is,
I mean,
Advent Children Sephiroth. And it makes sense, because one, Sephiroth in the original game, from what I can gather, up until the ending, well, even then, like, he didn't care who Cloud was, really. Like,
Sephiroth in the original game was, like, he was just a massive plot twist. Because
it was. The
Sephiroth you're chasing is actually Jenova.
Who's
being controlled by Sephiroth and taking Sephiroth's form. Yeah, their relationship in the original game, I think it's definitely not as important as some people think it is, but it is still.
It's important.
Cloud is still the one that fucking stabs Sephiroth.
But it's like there was no like in like Advent Children where like it's almost like Sephiroth is obsessed with Cloud. So because of this game, I've been looking into a lot of the books and a lot of like the supplementary material, which for the most part I don't really like, but explains aspects that I do find cool. Now,
Are you going to talk about On the Way to a Smile?
I'm talking about Livestream White and Black.
Haven't heard about.
It's the one where it's basically from Aerith and Sephiroth's point of view.
I think that isn't On the Way to a Smile.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but yeah, it's extended lore. Okay.
Right. Where essentially Sephiroth can't actually be defeated. He'll always be around as long as Cloud is around. Like, he's like tied his existence to Cloud's.
I feel like we should also mention that those are semi-canon books.
No, they are written by Najima. They are canon. They are written by the guy who wrote Final Fantasy VII. They aren't semi-canon. They are canon. Like, there's like, especially with the way how like Square takes its writing, there is the book for Final Fantasy X where Tidus kicks a blitz ball and it was actually a bomb and he blows up. That's canon. And his head rolls on and then Yuna picks it up. Like, I'm not even joking, that's canon. Because it's written by the same guy who wrote Final Fantasy X. Like, it's like
okay, right. We need a discussion on canon. Like,
well, no. It's not a discussion on canon. It's like this is like parts of those stories are like they lead straight into Advent Children. It's not like that's just it. If you consider like, okay, only released things are canon. Well, why aren't these books canon? What is Advent Children canon? Because it very clearly is.
There is like an established framework of what they consider to be like true canon.
Where is this?
No, as in like in the mind, right? And in like their press releases and what they say about these games. Like, they never talk about the novellas ever. Like, And Dirge of Cerberus, they don't talk about that either, but that is a mainline entry just because it actually was published as a game and it came out and people played it. But
And they reference that in this game. They reference Deep Ground in this game.
do they?
Yeah, that lab underneath underneath Sector 7, that's a Deep Ground lab.
I didn't see it like that, but fair enough. But back to the kind of thing.
And they reference Genesis in the game where they talk about S and G type soldiers.
Yes, that's true.
So this is very clearly heavily influenced. They did say that Advent Children is at the core of this game in one of their like the making of documentaries they released.
Yeah, look, to be honest, this has evolved from what it was originally about. I just want to say that, like, at least I'm very wary of taking what's been said in the novellas, because there are two major like sources of extended FF7 lore, and that's the Ultimania Omega, which is like an encyclopedia, and there are the novellas.
Well, the Ultimania for this game is out. The Ultimania came out like last week, and that thing is like riddled with weird like things where, like, does Aerith know more than she does? Like, does Sephiroth know more than he does? It's like, it's very clearly what's happened is that Sephiroth from Advent Children, after he was beaten, right, sent himself back in time, managed to do this some reason, somehow, right? And the reason why I'm saying this is because, and the reason why I accept this is because in Kingdom Hearts that happened. And yeah, Nojima is writing, but Nomura is going to have influence on the story. There is no doubt time travel, right?
Yeah, no, that's not the issue.
Sephiroth.
I just want to make sure. Yeah, okay.
Sephiroth sends himself back in time. Influences events. It's why, and every time there is something that strays away from, like, I guess, their version of the original game. So, like, for example, Aerith talking to Cloud for longer than she should. The whispers appear.
Yeah.
Cloud not immediately accepting the second reactor bombing. The whispers appear, makes Jesse injured, so he has to accept. I mean, the biggest one was Sephiroth killing Barret. Like, that is the biggest one. Because that is when the game kind of goes off the rails almost completely. Because everything up until that point, some of it was different, but it was going towards the same destination. But then Sephiroth straight up just appears in front of the party in the lab. Because up until that point, you can assume it's all in Cloud's head, you know? But then no, he's there in front of everybody. That's actually him. And I think that this is Sephiroth who knows he's going to lose. I mean, in Advent Children, when Sephiroth was, like, summoned, was he a threat? Yeah, but he kind of got fucked up by Cloud. That wasn't really a fight. When I see Cloud doing Omni Slash, especially in the complete edition of Advent Children, it's just like, wow, okay. This is Sephiroth after he's gotten his wing as well. Where for, like, Genova soldiers, like, if they get their wing, they're, like, super powerful, like Angeal and Genesis.
I think actually they die. They degenerate.
Yeah, they eventually die, yeah. But they're still super powerful.
Yeah.
Or they, like, mutate into something. That's what happened to him, Angeal and
Angeal penance stuff.
Yeah.
And it was an emotional and a pain in the ass.
Yeah, right? So it's like, oh. And then you could get into, like, power scaling. You'd be like, well, how strong was Zack? And it's like, well, Zack was obviously super duper strong, but he couldn't take all those soldiers. But anyway, well.
Or could he, huh?
Yeah, or could he? Which, okay, listen. I think that them changing the story to such a degree at that end, I think it's really cool. I initially hated it, but then I thought, I'm gonna get more story of Final Fantasy VII that will retroactively get rid of Advent Children and the ending for Final Fantasy VII, because I don't like the ending for the original game. I don't like the fact that it's kind of just got a bad ending, because the world is fucked after it. Like the world, like you got Advent Children, and it's a geostigma, and then in the supplementary material you find out Sephiroth can never really be killed, and then you find out in Dirge of Cerberus there's other things going on, like Hojo was doing stuff, and
okay, my disputes with the supplementary material aside, I had a very different impression of the ending for 7.
But the ending for but the ending for 7 is, no, not Crisis Core. The ending for Crisis Core is fine. I'm talking about the ending for 7 with Red 13 and his cubs. So, I'm talking about how like humanity had been wiped out in like 500 years. That was confirmed in an interview with Katase.
Well, whether what it was aside, for me, the impression I got from all the games was the theme of hope enduring. Like, yes, because for me it was just about humanity. Like, yes, humanity does die out, but the planet lives and life exists on the planet.
But the problem is that the planet doesn't live because Sephiroth is still around and he's always going to be messing with things. Like, that's the problem. They never actually beat Sephiroth. Which is like a problem with FF7, like the compilation, where it's like they're constantly just bringing him back, story-wise. But I mean, we just got to take the story as it is, you know. I can't like just ignore the compilation. That's what my problem is. Like with Kingdom Hearts, I can't just take Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 and just ignore the rest of the series because, like, no, I can't just do that because that's not the whole story.
They did fuck up with the compilation by just adding.
They just tacked on, and I think that them. And the thing is, my biggest problem with the compilation was like the characterization of characters, especially Cloud. And I think that the characters in this game are great. I think the interactions between them and like the way how they've written them, I think is great. Like even just like the brief like 2 hours that you're with Fred 13. And they've like encapsulated like what that character is. Where like, you know, when he's spouting exposition and the way how he sounds as well, like I played the English version, like the dub. The way how he sounds, you think that he's like this wise character, but then he's just insulting Cloud and he's just like being a bit whiny, like a teenager. Because that's what he is.
The scene
that's what he is.
In the car when Barrett's like, "Don't you ever smile?" And then Red smiles. I was fucking pissing myself.
Or when he just calls him like a sack of shit, pretty much. Like
a rat dog or some shit. Yeah, fair enough.
Do you kind of get what I'm saying? Where it's like, I feel like this is them recognizing that the compilation was a mistake, but they are acknowledging the fact that people genuinely do like that. People love Advent Children and people love Crisis Core. And I do think that for the people, because there are so many people who don't even know who Zack is, it's weird for me, like people who don't know who that character is. So I guess it must be pretty exciting for people who don't know these games to play the ending and be like, who the hell is that?
If you haven't played Crisis Core and you didn't do the side quest with Cloud in Disc 3, then yeah, you wouldn't know. Yeah. Which are both kind of like, they're relatively reasonable requirements to not have fulfilled.
But even then, if you just play through Final Fantasy VII and you didn't do any of that stuff, you know that he's the guy that Cloud thinks he is. Like, because you had to have gone through the medial, like, coma rebuilding thing.
I feel like we've gotten really, really far from our original point. So this was originally on Sephiroth appearing.
Yeah, where it's just like this game... It's a sequel, like it's a sequel in terms of like Sephiroth from beyond Advent Children. He has managed to send himself back in time, and he's just messing with the timeline to try and shift things so that he doesn't have to, or so that he can win, pretty much, right?
So yeah, no, that's great. And the moment I kind of sussed out that this was a sequel and like there's some time fuckery going on, I was all for it. Like, and even before, again, I need to stress, my problem is not with, like...
Your problems with the gameplay, and I think that in the next game, if they solve those problems, I think that the next game could be an unironic 9 out of 10 for you.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Well, we'll have to see, because again, I need to acknowledge that I'm just not really a fan of action-based like RPGs. But my problem is not with plot changes or anything like that. It's more when the plot changes just have unnecessary moments of like not even you know what, out of character. Sephiroth isn't really the kind of guy to like. He doesn't. He's not a prick because he enjoys being a prick. He's a prick because he believes he's right.
So okay, so this is the thing with that character after Advent Children. He like Sephiroth after the original game is a fundamentally different character than Sephiroth in FF7. So it's like, okay, he thinks he's right, yeah. But with I feel like you have to refer to those like novellas simply because they are what I mean. This is with Kingdom Hearts as well, where you've got like just all kinds of supplementary materials that explain, like the mobile game. People thought the mobile game wasn't canon, but it turns out it's the most important game in the series story-wise.
Oh, Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, I'm not even joking. And there were 2 mobile games. One mobile game, and then I had a sequel where it was like a reboot. But then, as it turns out, it wasn't a reboot, it was a sequel. But also, it was an in-universe reboot. It was weird. Anyway, the way how they've... I think it's like a meta-narrative, where it's like, you know, when Sephiroth appears in Chapter 2, after the bombing, it's like, look, the game is like pointing at him and saying, look, it's the guy, it's Sephiroth. Everyone knows who Sephiroth is, right? Even if you've not played Final Fantasy, you don't even know what a video game is. I feel like you've seen Cloud, you've seen Sephiroth, right? When you think of Final Fantasy, you think Cloud, Sephiroth. For the normal person. And I feel like that is like a meta-narrative. Like, I feel like that's them playing on expectations.
So, I get...
And him kind of fucking with Cloud is... Because that's what Advent Children was. Advent Children was him sending the 3 guys to basically go fuck with Cloud.
Alright. Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
Because in those novellas, he, like... When he, like, gets killed by Cloud? You know when, like, Cloud projects himself into the live stream at the end of FF7? He does that, and then kind of gets rid of the will of Sephiroth. Because Sephiroth physically is dead, but the will is still there. Because of the way how the live stream works, whatever. But he's there. Gets rid of Sephiroth's will, but Sephiroth is still there. In the novella, it's like his essence, but it's not actually him. Does that make sense? It's like his soul is there, but there's like nothing of Sephiroth is there anymore. It's like his soul. No memories or no nothing. And he rebuilt himself from the memories of himself from Cloud, and that's why he's tied to Cloud. And I think that kind of makes sense because for him to be focused on Cloud, because his existence relies on him, as well as the fact that I would not be surprised if Cloud thinks that Sephiroth did this to him personally, especially at the point when Cloud thought he was Zack. Where he thought like he had a personal working relationship with Sephiroth. He thought Sephiroth was his hero. You know, he, destroyed his hometown. Like, do you get what I'm trying to say?
I get what you're trying to say, and with all due respect, that wasn't the point I was getting on.
Oh, what were you trying to say? Sorry.
My point was a broader, and thankfully they don't really do it after the first 5 chapters, but when they make plot changes, which aren't bad in themselves, because as I already mentioned, I love the plot of this game, and I like the additions. Sometimes they make plot changes which are just...
It doesn't make sense. So are you trying to say, like, why would Sephiroth just troll Cloud? Why would he do this?
No, it's more like when they've been added to kind of either artificially inflate or make us feel a certain way that they probably could have done naturally. So with the Sephiroth thing, we've already kind of discussed it. Yeah, he's fucking with Cloud. All right, cool. So I can now explain away my cold knife, my cold sword into a flesh line.
Yeah,
That's a piss off Cloud. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. You have, and we've talked about this before, a bigger focus on Jesse in this game. And when they and we also have a bigger focus on like kind of the members of Avalanche and how they feel about eco-terrorism, like they feel guilty. The game decides in this kind of remake to show that Avalanche did fuck all. It was actually Shinra that blew up the reactors, which in itself would have been like fine if there was like a bigger meta plot going on there, but the Shinra manipulation plot isn't really that important. And when I first saw that Shinra blew up the reactor, I was like, oh wow, I wonder what they're building into. And then I was bombarded with line after line after line of Jesse and Tifa, and like I think maybe Wedge at one point being like, oh, it was my bomb that killed these people. Oh, we've hurt all these people. I'm like, okay, so you're really just trying to push
there were a few little throwaway lines in the original game about that though.
Yeah,
and then Kate Sif throwaway lines later on.
Yeah, throwaway lines that
But isn't that just kind of to add to when Jesse dies, quote unquote?
I just don't. For me, I just felt like it was really, really unnecessary. You don't need to convince me.
It was very heavy-handed. Yeah, I'm not going to disagree.
That's my problem. Heavy-handed changes. I didn't need to be told to feel bad for Avalanche because, yes, clearly they have issues going on. Otherwise, they'd be fucking eco-terrorists, right? Like, so
yeah, I didn't care for like Jesse's family thing. I did not.
Also, I like Jessie. I don't need to be told why I should sympathize with her.
Yeah.
If you need to tell me, like, to sympathize with the character, you failed. You shouldn't do that. So there's heavy-handed changes, and then there's just stupid shit. Like the entire Don Corneo's sewer sequence of Leslie. Who the fuck is Leslie? Why should I care about Leslie?
He was in a book. He was in The Kids Will Be Alright, or whatever it's called. Him and Kyrie were in that book.
Why put him in? Like,
I don't know.
With Roche, I like that. His appearance is short, sweet, and it sets up for more.
Yeah, I thought Leslie stuck out like a sore thumb. Like he's like a new Nomura design.
Luckily, these two instances, the big like Shinra did it, and the Leslie storyline were the only two story changes. With
the Shinra thing, it's very clearly that they're building towards like another war with Futai. They're using the Avalanche as like a scapegoat, so that they can go to war.
That becomes apparent as the game goes on. But these are my thoughts at the time, and even with that, I don't feel like we need that to kind of think that Shinra are dirty slime bags who will do that kind of shit.
True, but like they've written Shinra as being like comically evil in this game. Like,
any issues you have with Shinra, maybe they're doing all right for people, improving their lives, goes out a fucking window the moment they blow up Sector 7. Yeah. You don't need extra exposition to make.
But at that point, the characters don't know, as in we know, but the characters don't. That they're still under the impression that they blew up the reactor. So what I'm guessing is going to happen in the next game, you'll get to Gold Saucer, Jesse will be there. You'll meet Kate Sif, and then Kate Sif will tell her like he'll just be like he knows that they didn't do it. That's what I'm guessing will happen. And if it's not in that game, it'll be in like a future game.
I keep going, yeah, but those are my only plot issue. When it's just, I just feel it's egregious. You just don't need it around. And then
do you not think it would be like weird though if the characters weren't referring to like the bombings like throughout the game, like, and like how they very clearly regret it and they killed, like they think they've killed a lot of people?
The only person to really regret it, people.
Well, Tifa did. Actually, Jesse did.
Yeah, Tifa and Jesse are like I think Wedge mentions it, but it's really just Tifa and Jesse. Barrett is like, it's for the planet. Many people have to die. Cloud doesn't give a shit, or at least doesn't show he gives a shit.
Yeah.
It literally is just Tifa and Jesse. I'd probably be
Who
more
are two
inclined.
major characters? The cast is quite small.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I just didn't agree with the level of like heavy-handed.
Yeah,
Hey, you're this way.
it's not a subtle game. Like, it's not. Like, it's still got that like goofiness and that like kind of like anime-esque storytelling. It's not going to be subtle. That's not these guys' like writing style. When you have a game that ends with the party literally killing like the manifestation of destiny, then I think like, oh, maybe the story is not that subtle. Like I don't find an issue with these characters being regretful of them blowing it up and Shinra just being comically evil about it.
It's not about them being regretful for me.
It's the fact that the game is constantly telling you.
Yeah, that literally.
That's part. That's like
I
a
like
major
JRPGs.
part of their character.
JRPGs are fucking full of stupid, like over the top shit, like heavy-handed stuff. But I just had an issue with because it kind of combined two spheres, lore changes of heavy-handedness. They combined to create something dark within me that I didn't like. But again, luckily, it was pretty much those two bits, three if you count Sephiroth, that I had an issue with. And as a new player, I wouldn't even think anything different of the Sephiroth scene originally.
But that's why I would say you need to play the original game before this. Just because you lack a lot of context. This would be fine if this was like a normal remake that just there is no kind of meta narrative. There's no not references. I mean like just like there's so many parts of this game that would be totally lost on you. Like the whole ending sequence. Like
yeah, the Zack bit.
The Zack bit. Even certain like references and certain like moments, fan servicey moments, I think would be totally lost on people. When I was fighting Genova and it went to the phase 3, and the original music, like an arrangement of the original music with a synth started playing.
Yeah, Genova synthesis.
No, not synthesis, as in like the music.
That's the track that plays during Genova synthesis.
No, that's just the Genova theme. No, not Genova. No, as in like just the Genova theme starts playing with synth, like as in electronics, not like the orchestral arrangement.
Yep. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Right. When that kicked in, when the music kicked in, and it picks up the pace during phase 3, which is like the most intense part of that fight. I think that's my favorite part of the game, like hands down. That was my favorite moment. And then, the ending where you have like Sephiroth and Cloud fighting that cutscene, and it like is doing like the flashes. I don't know why they pull it in now. I think that's just them being like, we are putting in the fan services stuff in now, because in the next few games we don't even know if we're going to follow the same story. They've come out and said they will, but who knows?
I personally really dislike the whole distortion area because
I felt it was out of place.
Yeah, I didn't like it, and the Sephiroth fight more so. It just, I don't think we needed a Sephiroth fight, but they were kind of like, we need to put one in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I totally
That's
agree.
What it felt like. Yeah.
Totally agree. We need to have a Sephiroth fight, so we're doing a Sephiroth fight. However, it's very clear. Like my biggest problem was a power scaling thing, where these guys have just come from fighting the physical manifestation of destiny. They've fought Sephiroth. How is the Midgardsorlem going to be a problem? I've reconciled this, and this is like a headcanon, by accepting or like thinking, okay, maybe Sephiroth wanted them to win, and I guess it can kind of make sense when you think about it in terms of like, okay, those 3 whispers are based on the 3 guys from Advent Children.
There's 4.
Huh?
There's 4.
The 3 bosses that you fight. I'm not talking about the Harbinger. I'm talking about the 3 mini guys.
I swear there's 4.
No, there's 3. There's the blue, the green, and the yellow one.
There's red.
Red, sorry. There's the red, the guy with the sword, the one with the guns, and the one with the fist. There's not 4. You fight Bahamut. They merge into Bahamut. They summon him.
I'm inclined to believe you, but I just, for peace of mind, I need to check.
Yeah, that's fine. But there's 3, and then you fight. They merge into Bahamut.
Yeah, you're right.
They're based off
You're right.
Sephiroth's remnants and Advent Children.
I did play that at 4 AM, but you're right.
Yeah, like I think the game like initially leads you to think that these are like, because if you assess them, they say like they're like future whispers that are like trying to protect their future. But you look at it and it's like, okay, this is like Cloud, Barret, and Tifa. But then you look at their moveset and you look at what they're fighting with, and you kind of think about the wider story. You can kind of think, okay, well, these are just the guys from Advent Children. And then they summon Bahamut, which they do in Advent Children. So, from what I'm inclined to believe is that the Sephiroth is already messing with stuff at that point. He's already like controlling stuff. He can't directly attack Destiny. He can't directly destroy it, but he's already got control of it, if you get what I'm trying to say. So he's getting the party to do it. So when you beat the Harbinger, he's just like, oh, well, whatever. And then you fight him. Story-wise, it makes no sense that the party would have been able to beat this version of Sephiroth. He's like...
There's also... Yeah.
He, like... These are... I mean, if you want to be a bit weird about it, you can say, well, like, this is like a level 30 party who would be like late mid-game if you were playing through the original game with like without doing many side quests, without doing much content. However, it makes more sense to me if Sephiroth just let them win, because Sephiroth, like when Cloud is fighting Sephiroth in the Edge of Creation, there is no chance Cloud would have beaten him.
I might be reading too much into this, but I'm inclined to believe of you because the game like constantly heals Cloud when you're fighting. Even when Red's not there, like you get like little regen bursts. And also Sephiroth says this thing 7 seconds till the end.
Yeah, and we don't know what that means yet.
Lots of people don't know what that means.
Lots of people seem to think that's the time for when Sephiroth is like going to kill Aerith. People have timed it and that's 7 seconds. However, this game's probably full of red herrings because they want people to talk about it.
Yeah, that's probably just bullshit. Honestly, when he first started saying 10, I was like, shit, is he going to do like a one of those like end game attacks?
It's an instant lose if he gets to 0.
Oh really?
Yeah. It's Supernova. He does Supernova. That's what that is.
When I beat him when he got to 7, I just thought it was a scripted thing. That entire area felt scripted. I didn't feel like I could lose. Like,
oh, you can. I lost. Yeah. I didn't let him count down, but I died multiple times in that fight. Just because I wasn't paying attention to it. I was really tired.
I didn't have fun with the fights at all, but I got through them. Like, yeah.
I think Sephiroth is a cool fight, like mechanically though. Because he's just Punisher mode that Cloud does.
Something about assess, what we've talked about. The game encourages you to use assess so much that when you get to the end game and you can't assess these creatures, I imagine that might have created problems for some people.
Well, like as in you couldn't assess Sephiroth?
You can't assess Sephiroth and you can't assess the Whispers.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can, but you don't get anything out of it. You don't get any information.
Yeah, you do.
I know. I assessed Sephiroth and I was like unable to read.
Yeah, because the whole thing with that is that you're assessing everything in the game, then you get to Sephiroth. I think that's meant to be like a oh fuck moment. Like
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, because I like to overthink, I kind of said to myself, I'm gonna stop assessing, because if I don't develop my own skills to figure out what the fuck's going on, I'm gonna get reamed later on. I don't think assess is really, really important in this game. Do you agree?
No, I totally agree. But that was the case in, like, for example, like FF10. You need to do that in FF10. And the game encourages you to do it as well because you get rewarded for doing it with Chadley.
I've never really felt. Well, I don't remember when I played FF10 using assess that much.
You can use it. I mean, in Kingdom Hearts, you need to use scan. If you actually can't see characters' health, enemies' health, if you don't have scan.
It's a very minor thing. I felt like this game really encouraged assess, and I was always kind of wondering if that was a good thing or not.
But maybe it doesn't have to be a good thing. It's just what the game does. Like, that's just like, the game has weaknesses. I can't figure out the weaknesses. Like, I mean, you kind of can. Like, I figured that Leviathan would have been weak to thunder because he's water, so he's going to be weak to thunder. Like, that's what I figured, but I didn't necessarily believe, like, I'm not going to trust that. Like, that's like the developers' expectations. They could be like, oh, he's going to think that he's weak to thunder, but in actuality absorbs it.
So that, yeah, I get it. I see where you're coming from, because video game developers do that. I mean more like less the chart of resistances, more the bit of text that says, if you hit its back now, it will counterattack. So hit the front. You know, like, I feel that
that's just for people who don't want to figure out the fight. Like, that's it. That's so that they have like a, and the thing is, people will still get caught. Like, Doom does this. Doom will have like full-on tutorials, and it will give you like a list of things that bosses will do in that game, and people will still lose to these bosses just because they just don't know how to conceptualize mechanics and like internalize them. It's just, I think it's just so that nobody can use the argument that the game didn't tell me what to do.
Yeah,
I think that's just them. That's just them covering their backs from
without trying to be elitist. It doesn't really apply to you and me because we do play these games.
Yeah, it doesn't apply to us.
I don't feel.
But like with Rufus, for example, if the game never told you that one attack will instantly stagger him, do you know how many people would just be wailing on that guy? My initial run through, I was just like, oh my god, what move is it? And I just used magic, and I beat him. Then I found out it was braver afterwards, and I was like, oh, that would have made things so much easier. But I can only imagine if there's somebody who managed to get through the entire game without using anything. Because I'm sure there are people who did it on easy, for example, which you can do. You can just do it on easy and just like mash. They'll get to Rufus and be filters. Because they would just be like, what do I do? And then they assess. They're like, oh, one move will do it, and they'll do braver, and that's it.
Again, without trying to be elitist, but it is kind of elitist. I don't think that should be a thing. I think that, and this is kind of more about games nowadays, showing how to do everything. I think that that's kind of a thing that you should just figure out.
Yeah, I agree.
So
it's why
part of the enjoyment of the game come from.
So it's why I think that hidden it's the argument I'd use for hidden mechanics, like I was doing before. I think that's why they should be in the game. Just don't tell me how to do them. I'll figure them out myself. But that's not what we were talking about. We're talking about the story.
Yeah.
So
the story's fine. There's nothing wrong with the story. In fact, I quite like it. I'm eager to find out what happened to Zack.
Well, the thing is that it's left really ambiguous because that could be a changed timeline. So, okay, my initial thoughts on it was they beat the Whispers, and the Whispers are like present throughout all of time, all at the same time, because they surrounded Midgar, and they were there when Zack was fighting the soldiers, right?
Mm.
So, from what I can gather, there were probably like loads of instances where Zack was going to win, but the Whispers just made him lose. Like they like tripped him up or something, right?
Mm. So that's what Destiny. Destiny, if you think about it as a 4-4 breaking Square Enix or Squaresoft, Destiny wanted Zack to lose.
Not Squaresoft. I'd say it was the fans. I think that the Whispers are a representation of the fans who want the game to be exactly the way how it was story-wise.
Fair enough.
So with Zack, he's going off with Cloud and it's raining. Zack didn't actually die until he got to like further, and he basically got ganked, like he just got like shot in the back. If I'm remembering it correctly.
No, Zack gets like just blasted. He gets booty blasted like really hard. In Crisis Core, like I don't know if you remember that last fight, but that entire fight is just a really sad cutscene of him getting fucked. Because this is just me, because I like Crisis Core. Okay, there was a big bit of that, like part of that game was like fucking Persona level social links where you make friends with people. And
yeah, I know you've got like the roulette reel. Yeah.
But that entire endgame fight was the roulette wheel just breaking and like all your relationships like disappearing because you were getting booty blasted and you were dying. So he definitely died, and he died.
Oh no, I'm not saying that he didn't die at the end of the Crisis Core. I'm saying
I know
that he
didn't
could
like
just
get somewhere and then get shot.
Yeah, he literally could just like get like 2 minutes after the ending of the remake, he gets smoked.
Yeah.
Did you see what? Because it started raining.
Yeah.
Didn't it? So literally,
that'd be a small difference.
It literally could just be a red herring.
Wouldn't that fuck with the like established party beat the whispers? Fate's been changed. Like,
but who knows? Like, nothing's written anymore. Like him dying in a different spot doesn't mean fate hasn't changed. Fate has stayed the same, right? Like, it could just be like he didn't die in the same spot. Because the game will try to move characters. Not the game. The whispers will try to move characters. Like,
thinking at it from a meta perspective, I don't think Square would have decided to have him survive that encounter if it didn't intend for him.
Oh yeah. But there's always the possibility that he could still just be dead. I think that the current state of the timeline is either total alternate timeline, and they'll like relegate that to like DLC, or they'll like say like this is the other timeline, and we're going to make games with Zack or something because Zack's really popular. Or
God knows why.
They've made like some weird floating timeline where the characters' actions have like changed the past, but it's not created another timeline. It's straight up just changed the past. So it's like Zack is just walking around now, if you get what I'm trying to say. Like, they've literally just retroactively changed the past. So they're walking outside of Midgar, but there is just now a Zack in Midgar, or doing something. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because that kind of did happen. Or like Zack died somewhere, and then he's just brought back to life, like what happened for Biggs. You know?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened with Biggs, and I'm looking forward to that being explored.
If you read one of the chapter descriptions, it says that Biggs was like, what was it? It was like mortally injured or something like that. And then they say in the same paragraph that Jesse perished. Now that's an English translation, so whether it's fumbled some of the wording or not, I don't know. But
or if he just phrased it that way on purpose.
Yeah, they just did it like to be vague. So Biggs didn't, from what it seems like, Biggs didn't actually die.
None of them died from what it looks like.
Yeah.
Because on Biggs's bedside table,
it was Jesse's gloves. Yeah. So it's I think it's going to be really cool, because I was really sad because they developed these characters so much. They made me like Wedge.
Biggs definitely got the short end of the stick in terms of development, but even that was
he's still a likable character.
Yeah,
like he's still a likable character.
And Jesse is, of course, our new waifu.
Exactly. So I do think that they're gonna go all crazy here, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're doing, because the one thing that I really do want is a good ending for Final Fantasy VII, and for them to kind of close the book on this series and be like, here, it's not just this weird Dirge of Cerberus ending, it's actually like they've won, you know? I know that sounds kind of...
I'm looking forward to seeing where the plot goes. I'm just not sure that I can bring myself to actually play this. Not only this game, but games like it in this remake trilogy again.
or whether it's a trilogy. We don't even know if it's going to be like a remake. Like they're saying that it will be future ones will be a remake. But if that were the case, then why didn't they call this Part 1 or Episode 1?
Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we've had a long discussion about this. I've kind of said that I love everything but the gameplay, but despite how much I love everything else, I don't feel like I can subject myself to playing another 30, 40 hours of a game like this, just plot.
Yeah, that's fair enough. If you don't like the gameplay, I'm not gonna like. There'd be no reason to force yourself to play through it.
Yeah, and you know what? I probably still will.
I know you
but I
will.
won't enjoy it.
I know you will do it. So, I hope they rectify the problems I had with this game in the next installment.
They've got to.
They kind of have to.
This must have been such huge oversight. Like, so many things must have been just an oversight. Like, you know, the materia switching. You know, just AI commands, a better camera, flying enemies. Like, these are all just things that...
If there's one thing you can kind of think, though, this game has had a pretty rough development. They started this game back in what, like 2014? 2015? And the game had restarted development like twice at that point. They gave it to CyberConnect 2 and they didn't like what CyberConnect 2 did. And then they started it internally, and then from what we can gather, internal development wasn't great. Because they were learning UE4, and they were also making Kingdom Hearts 3 at the same time, which was announced 2 years before that game, and that had barely started. They had only made like pre-production stuff for it. As well as like they wanted this game to be of a specific kind of focus where they want it to be this like cinematic experience, because that's what it is. It's a very cinematic game. Like those boss fights are a spectacle.
Yeah,
like they're insane. Like even the bike mini game is a huge spectacle. It's not the best mini game. I didn't like the motorball thing, but like watching that, mate, the production values are there. And I think that's where a lot of the game went to. I bet their priority was, we need to establish a baseline combat system, and we can just make it work, and then build assets as quickly as we can. Because they probably wanted to get this game out before the PS5 was a thing. Notice how this is the last year they would have been able to release this game. If they released this game on the PS5, they would have had to retool everything. And not to say this game is rushed, but it definitely could have been left in the oven for a little bit longer, or just waited until the PS5 came out, or I
feel like PS5 would have been a better format.
Yeah, or release it on PC.
This is not a criticism of the game. This is not meant to contribute to our discussion right now, but it's more just between two mates. Like, I just want to kind of say that the entire time I was playing this game, I wanted to think that I was playing it wrong. And I really wanted to think that I just wasn't doing the battles right. And that weighed on me quite a bit. But mechanical problems aside, camera, AI, whatever, like, I really do hope that, like, for whatever reason, I have a new appreciation and I come to enjoy the combat system when either the second game comes out, or in the unlikely event I decide to replay this game. Because, you know, I do worry. I kind of wonder that is something holding me back from enjoying the game, and that's been one of the biggest concerns with this game in general. I've been like, you know, is it because I'm too attached to the original, or is it because I don't like action games? And I guess I'm just trying to find... If
you don't find the game fun, then there's nothing you can do about it. I'm not the biggest fan of The Witcher 3. I don't think the combat system in that game is very fun. I think it's quite dry, and like just like it doesn't know what it wants to be. But, you know, whenever I say that to people, they kind of go insane at me. They're like, whoa.
Like, I guess I'm just sad. I'm sad that, for whatever reason, I
Yeah,
can't
because you
enjoy
want to
with
like
combat
it.
system.
You want to like it.
Yeah.
Like, I really want to like loads of other games. I really try to power through Final Fantasy 15 and I just can't. I think that game is just boring. But if you have like serious problems with the combat system of FF7, like you can't deny that. You can't like say, well, I'm just going to ignore it. Because I have problems with it. And I'm not going to ignore it. The way how I think about these kind of problems is, was this intentional? Is this a game designer telling me what I'm doing is wrong? And have they failed in that? It's like, you know, why? Because the problem is that somebody could say, I don't like this combat system because this doesn't work, and then they could just be an idiot. I'm not saying you're an idiot, but you get what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
they could just
the combat system does work. I just don't. Well, it doesn't work well, but it works. I just don't enjoy it. Yeah.
Exactly. You just don't enjoy it. It does work, but there are parts of this game where it just doesn't, because it's like they've not thought about it. It's like they've made an encounter. They thought, okay, this encounter works like this, but there are parts of the game itself that is counterintuitive to how they want the encounter to work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this game's combat system works best in wide areas.
Works best in
enemies.
a boss encounter with all of your party, or it's a 1v1.
Like, I feel like they tried way too hard to weave it into like the environments you're walking through, and that just fucked it.
Agreed. Yeah.
I just played like 2 hours of Tales of Exilia this morning. And in that game, you have free roam enemies, and the way they get around it, and you probably remember, is
they go into a
run into
separate
an
battle
enemy,
area,
and then you go into a battle area, and I really don't see why
they could have done that.
Yeah.
But I think that could have presented like technical issues.
Which again, we come back to the issue of this game just being held back by its hardware.
Or they just wanted it to be seamless. The game doesn't have many hard cuts.
I don't think that's. I think, like, for whatever reason, people don't like hard cuts anymore.
Yeah. I think that kind of just comes down to how they wanted the game to be. The game could have just been, like, the areas could have just been better designed. Like, that's the thing. They could have just been better designed. Like, especially the sewer and like the shortcut to Sector 6. I think the collapse expressway. I think those could have been better designed areas.
Talked about it at all, and we're nearing on 2 hours, but it needs to be said. Fucking so much padding.
There is too much padding in this game. That's the only thing I can say. It's just too much padding. When I'm spending 30 minutes doing like this stupid, I nearly quit the game. I nearly was just like, I'm not playing this. When I was presented with that robot arm puzzle, and it was just like, this is. Am I just stupid? Can I just not figure this out? But here I am. I spent 30 minutes like trying to maneuver things, and as it turns out, you can't pick up Aerith if she's here, and it was just ridiculous. And it's very clearly there just for padding.
Padding like that, padding like the side quest, which to be fair, you don't have to do. The whole underground lab segment, like, it didn't need to be that long.
It didn't, yeah, you're right.
It really didn't need to be that long. And like, oh my fucking god, I'm angry. Like the bit where you control Barrett and you're trying to shoot the box on the walls. What the fuck were they thinking? Just silly. give me a targeting reticle.
Yeah,
like, come on, guys.
I didn't like the sections that like you had to go to an area then aim at something. Just give me a button or give me like an option to do this. I don't know. It was just so weird.
And I guess for me, one of the things when we talk about this game is it amazes me, and I mean this in the nicest way. It amazes me that you can give this game like contender for best game of the year, or I think a 9 out of 10 was mentioned at some point, despite all these issues that we've discussed. Like,
but the thing is that I just really like this game. Like, I still really like it. I think everything around it is good. I love the music. I love the presentation. I really like the story. I really like the gameplay. It just has some issues for me. And in terms of like as an action game, I think it really strikes a good balance. Like the combat system itself really strikes a good balance between like something where you have to be making moment to moment decisions, but still have a game plan as you go into every fight. But it's still not as fast paced as something like Kingdom Hearts.
I guess we
like, and in terms
feel about things differently, yeah.
And in terms as contender for the game of the year, like, mate, what's come out this year?
True.
Like, seriously, like, Doom.
It's just that title in itself holds a certain amount of weight.
Yeah, but it's nothing's come out. Like, what, Animal Crossing? Does Animal Crossing deserve Game of the Year? I like that game, but like,
I mean, I haven't played it, so
like, no, it doesn't. Nowhere near Game of the Year for that. Just because it's just not. It's a sim. Like, it's just a sim. If that were the case, it's like, oh, but you can do this for 700 hours. If that were the case, then like, Farming Simulator would win the Game of the Year every single year. You've got, I mean, The Last of Us. I wasn't a big fan of the original game, but like all of the stuff and all the leaks as well. I'm not going to talk about them, but all the stuff from that game up until now signals that it's not going to be that good. And then you have Doom Eternal, and Doom Eternal, before I played Final Fantasy VII, I would have said this is it. But after I finished FF7, I still would have given it to Doom. But the fact that I am still thinking about FF7 Remake, I have not stopped thinking about this game. I'm like jittery because I want the next one badly, and simply because of that, I'm just like, I don't think I would be honest with myself if I said this wasn't my favorite game this year. Does that, like, would you say that's fair?
That's fair. With me, it's kind of like I'm really struggling. Like 90% of my being wants to just put it back in my game shelf and forget about it because I just had that. It was just that unfun for me.
And that's fair enough.
However, the completionist streak in me wants to at least finish Chadley's, because I just need to master all the magic materia, and I got like 2 left, and I want to fight Bahamut and maybe the super boss. I'm trying to wrestle with those 2. I'm not really sure. I don't think I will, because honestly,
if you don't find it fun, then you don't have to. Like, if the combat system hasn't clicked with you, then there's no point in trying to force it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's not. Don't force yourself to like this game, but at the same time, like, I do think a lot of the stuff that you don't like, not necessarily issues, but things that you just don't like, are just down to taste. I reckon you wouldn't like Devil May Cry if that were the case. Like,
I feel like there is a certain way I expect to play my like JRPGs.
Then that's just like a case of you. Like,
yeah,
it's literally like, my JRPGs have to be like this. Then I don't know, man. Like, you're limiting yourself.
Well, I feel that's like, I have given this a good go.
Yeah, of course, like, of course.
And I am very aware that, like, I'm limiting myself, but hey, at least I've tried, right?
You finished the game. Yeah, you finished the game. Like, that's like, I'm not discrediting you. I'm not discrediting you. Like, I'm literally just saying, like, a lot of the problems you have for this game is just down to taste. And then there are very legitimate concerns, like quality of life, like how some encounters are just silly, the padding. But it seems like to me, if this game didn't have that combat system and was just turn-based, you would really like this game. And then you'd have to bring in the argument of, well, is a game a sum of its parts, or is it just a gameplay?
I would say the sum of its parts, because if it was just a gameplay, I would have hated this game. I wouldn't have cared about the music or the lore or the graphics, which at times, when it wants to be, can look really good.
I know the gameplay it's how you interact with it, so it's going to be one of the most important parts of like how you and now analyze a game, but there are loads of games that I would say the gameplay is arguably mediocre, but people love. Right? Like, I'd say the biggest one would be anything Naughty Dog has put out in the last 10 years. So, like...
Yeah, Uncharted's gunplay is...
Uncharted,
not...
what gunplay? It's like gun...
It's not great.
It's... Saying it's not great is giving it too much service.
Yeah, I don't play that game for the shooting. I play it for, like...
For the set pieces.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
Uncharted, right, unironically, like... there's something wrong with you if you like that game. There's actually something wrong with you if you like the gameplay of Uncharted. I remember
playing that game and being like, getting to a fight and be like, for fuck's sake.
Exactly. Like, it's just boring. And it's not boring and like nothing is happening. It's boring because too much is happening and you're not equipped to deal with it. I don't want this to become complaining about Uncharted, but when I'm playing through Uncharted 1 and I get to an area full of waist high cover, and I'm like, oh no, I've got to fight people. And then I step into an area, because the stealth doesn't work. Everyone sees me, and then grenades spawn at my feet.
That's how I feel about multi-combat in VII Remake. It's like, I'm trying to fight one guy, and then 3 disappear out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I don't like.
But I think I would make the argument that the difference between that example and the Uncharted one is that Uncharted fundamentally doesn't work. While FF7's combat system can work, it just needs way more refinement. Would you agree with that?
Some serious work
needs
to go into the AI, and I think ATB, like the way it accumulates, it needs to be rebalanced.
It needs, yes.
Right now, it's far too.
It's too slow. It is too
slow.
Far
too reliant on hitting things, which if the player isn't careful, can lead to button mashing.
Yeah.
And there's, and like this is again down to taste. But if you're the player who likes to minimize damage and minimize incoming and maximize outcoming damage, you're gonna have a miserable time, like I did. Like, because no one's perfect, right? And so no one, so let's say with Cloud, can dodge and block every single attack because no one's perfect.
Yeah, you will take a hit. I have been seeing no damage runs of stuff though in this game. Yeah. I haven't seen them pop up.
You can do it, but it requires a lot of effort and skill. So yeah, that needs to be rebalanced, because people will lose patience every now and again and do something stupid, but the punishment you get for that is really, really harsh. Like,
that's probably that's a thing. We weren't there for the playtesting of this game, so who knows? Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if these conversations were happening. They had to have happened. Like the fact, I gave this example to you, like when we weren't recording, where like they very explicitly give you 2 ATB bars, and then they give you a limit break to give you 3. I was going through the entire game thinking that would suck. Why would I give up a bunch of just free damage just for an extra ATB gauge? Mate, that one extra gauge is insane, especially on someone like Barrett, who can use like maximum fury or like his focus shot, where it scales off of that, or like just being able to queue an extra attack or something. Like it is a game changer. Also, especially when you've got stuff like when I saw this guy was using the refocus with the ATB boost, you stack another ability after that, you've basically got like a bar and a half for your entire party.
I nerfed myself. Like, I refused to use ATB boost because I was like, that is going to make things way too easy. And
that's why I was saying, like, maybe the developers want you to do that to make that decision. They want the decision making to be at the build and how you take fights on, and not just how you fight, like in the moment. Because when I started like going into a fight and I would immediately pop haste and then I'd pop barrier on everyone, I found like I was more consistent. Like I was going into fights with a strategy as opposed to just seeing what happens. It's why I would say like with that's the difference between like generic encounters in this and like Kingdom Hearts. Generic encounters in Kingdom Hearts, like you see an enemy type, you know what they do. Especially in like Kingdom Hearts 1, you pop arrow before you get into the fight. You go in, you fight them, and then that's it. Kingdom Hearts 2, you just block when you have to, you dodge when you have to, and that's it. You learn their patterns. But with this, it seems like your party and your build has a strategy for every fight. You go into it and you do it like that. But then you will change your strategy depending on who you're fighting. So you're always going to do your pre like buffs or whatever before you go into the fight proper. It's like Demon Souls. Like Demon Souls, like before you get into a boss fight, for example, you just pop all of your buffs. That's how I play Persona, or like a Shin Megami Tensei game. I'll just like pop all of my buffs before I start fighting properly.
I do have bosses,
and I won't, I won't like properly get into the fight until I make sure that okay, this guy's got his like attack up, this guy's got his defense up. Like, it's just, I think that's what they're going for. They're trying to make it more strategic. I think that they like the ATB thing is just one thing that it is too slow by default. However, ATB boost and those things are so strong that I think that they needed to make it a big enough boost for you to sacrifice materia slots.
That's kind of what and I think we should make this the last point because we've been at this for a while. To do the strategy you're detailing, you need a lot of materia slots.
You need a lot of materia slots, and you need to like have a character built for it. Yeah.
And I guess this point gets back again to what we said at the beginning. The game doesn't really get good combat-wise until the end when you're kitted. But
exactly, until you're kitted out.
But despite the game as you're playing it as a whole should not have to wait to you know what I mean? Like
I agree. Yeah, I think it's a problem with Square games. I think that's just their design philosophy.
I just haven't played Square games since like 10.
Even Final Fantasy VII suffers from this. Like, it seems like maybe their design philosophy. This is just me like spitballing here. Maybe they design backwards. Maybe they design what they think that an end game party should be like, and then they just take stuff away from you as you progress to the start of the game. Does that make sense? They work backwards.
It makes sense. I disagree. I think like it just continually builds on what you. So the first fight of that game, you have attack magic item. You will use attack magic item interchangeably if you're not like min-maxing throughout the entire thing. Like
throughout the entire thing, but like the combat system doesn't really get super interesting until you're really deep into that game, right? When you start thinking about, okay, well, I can do these materia combos and such and such and such. For the first part of that game, like the Midgar section, the only materia combo you have access to, as far as I can tell, is all, right?
You have all, and you get
elemental. You get cover as well, right?
Yeah. I think that even in that section, there's enough to do. Like for example, I had Barret with cover. I used Sense when I needed it. You get Steel as well. Elemental that you get in the Shinra building is useful. By the time you get to the Mithril Cave, which is pretty much the next dungeon after Midgar, you get long range. The game continually and at a good pace supplies you with things you can use to change up your gameplay, yet you don't need it. Like, the game doesn't get substantially easier because you've given long range to Cloud.
I'm not talking about easier. I'm talking about like the combat system becoming interesting.
Yeah. But it was a side point. But it is an interesting dynamic to give Cloud that long range materia, because then suddenly he takes less damage and you can take more risks with him. Like, you don't have to spend a turn healing him, for example. an ATB gauge healing him. No, so I see what you're saying, but no, I feel like they offer you can explore the combat system like well enough relative to what part of the game you're in, because you wouldn't want to have this. I personally would want to be able to really explore the system during like the first 4 hours of the game. That's what I feel. Yeah.
Mm.
But there is definitely an argument to be made that they probably do develop backwards. I'd be surprised if they didn't. The thing with 7 though is like a lot of the original, a lot of the materia is just surplus to requirement. It's like we just threw it in for the hell of it.
Yeah,
like,
true.
Like HP to MP, death blow, fucking
enemy skill, arguably because of how like busted it
broken
is.
Broken that is, yeah. Like enemy skill. Speaking of which, did you use that in this game? I didn't. I used it once.
I used it once. There's only 4 enemy skills you can get.
Well, good for me, I didn't use it then.
Yeah, there's only 4 you can get.
And I was like, I can't be asked.
There's only 4 you can get. I think it's probably due to they didn't want to make blue magic too strong. That's the thing. Like after FF7, blue magic has, as far as I can tell, blue magic has been not great because of how
the thing with 7 is like if you equipped enemy skill and just played through the game and didn't hunt for shit, which would require you to look up a guide, which defeats the purpose. It was actually kind of shit.
Yeah, like, yeah, it was.
Like, enemy skill, like you'd get Matron magic if you're lucky, which is all right. Then you'd get Shrine, which is again all right, but the broken shit like Beta and Big Guard and Shadow, well, not really Shadow Flare. Yeah, Beta and Big Guard, just Big Guard. Big Guard is the big one. Like there's some
Beta carries you for the first like third of the game.
but the thing is, Beta is really difficult to get when you need to have some proper setup. Like you need to have Barret with a fire ring, like poison the. So, anyway, regardless, like enemy skill just if it was used the way that the developers intended, it wouldn't have been broken. Because like to get White Wind, which is an ability that heals you for your own HP and heals all debuffs, you need to manipulate, which you don't get until the Gold Saucer. You go back to this one area, which you have no reason to go back to, manipulate an enemy, have it cast White Wind on you. For Big Guard, you need to go to the beach of Costa del Sol. No one... When you leave Costa del Sol, you run around the grass. Yeah. No one runs to the beach. Yeah. You go there and manipulate one of them. It's just so convoluted. Yeah. Anyway, perhaps we should...
Let's wrap this up.
Closing words. Yeah. So I guess I'll start. Again, FF7. I like pretty much everything, the remake. Like, pretty much everything except for the gameplay, which has some definite quirks that need to be ironed out. However, I'm willing to concede that, and I want to say I haven't factored that into my review of the game in terms of objectively, that sometimes, it's a matter of taste. Like, I can't fault the game for certain things because it is taste. But I think overall, the game has promise. I don't know if you want to give scores, but I will. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Yeah.
I would give, for me it'd be an 8. I wouldn't give it a 9. Like I didn't finish what I was saying earlier. Like my initial like honeymoon phase of the game was like a 9 out of 10. I'd probably give it an 8 now. Just because like there were just points where I just remember back to it and absolutely hating the game. Overall, I'd give it an 8, veering on 9. But in terms of everything else, I think everything else was executed to such a high degree. I don't think I can discredit it for that. The music, the presentation.
We need the music. Oh,
yeah, I would make the argument it's probably the best a Final Fantasy soundtrack has been in a very long time.
I've got the deluxe edition, so I've got the mini CD, bruv.
It's got like 10 tracks on it, right?
Yeah, it's got 10 or 12.
I mean, the way how the music is used in this game is fantastic. There's just...
I think the best use of music, which had no basis in the original game, which I love it even more for, is the bit where Aerith and Tifa go to quote unquote save Cloud from Don Corneo.
Yeah, and it's
And
it's a
really
it's a
cool,
remix of
yeah.
Tifa's theme. Yeah,
It's so cool, man. I was like, oh my god, yeah. It was music is one thing that you cannot fault in this game.
yeah,
so
you can't. I listen.
props to the
I hate to
composer.
say it. No, I don't hate to say it. If you don't like the music in this game, you're an idiot. That's it. You're an idiot, and you unironically have no
It's
taste.
down to taste, innit?
No,
It's
but
down to
if you
taste.
don't think the music in this game's fantastic, no, because it's got everything. This game's got electronic, it's got rock, it's got orchestral stuff. You know, it's got everything, man. This game literally has everything. It's got. Listen, how many versions of Let the Battles Begin are in this game?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, how many different? Dude, the squats minigame has like
Yeah.
a song that would be like that's just a Tekken song, and it's better than like 90% of the tracks in T7. Like, come on, they went all out for this game. Even the tracks that I'm not a huge fan of, like the Whispers fights that are like some weird Final Fantasy 13 tracks, they were still really good.
Right. I really got that impression. I
Yeah,
was like,
because
this
guess
feels
what?
like a Final
The guy
Fantasy 13
who did those tracks probably was the guy who did 13. Because they had loads of guys working on this. Loads of people were working on this soundtrack.
Right. Why don't we then, to end with our favorite piece of music from this game? Right. You sound good?
What, Hip Hop to Chocobo?
That's yours.
We're going for that. That's going to be the outro.
Mine was a toss up between Yuffie's theme.
The jazz one.
I think it's jazz. Yeah,
Like the one you get from the jukeboxes.
Yeah, Yuffie's theme, Stand Up, which is the cross-dressing dance music.
Yep.
And Tifa's theme.
What?
I'm gonna have to go to stand Up, man.
Okay. So my favorite track in the game is probably the Crazy Motorcycle one. That whole thing. Because that is like just an arrangement of the bombing. It's like a roundup of the whole game. Musically. But in terms of before this game, I actually wasn't a big fan of Let the Battles Begin. After this game, I think it's probably one of my favorite battle themes in a video game.
Honorable mention must be given for me. I just like jazz and noir jazz and stuff. To Scarlet's theme.
Scarlet's theme's really good. Yep.
Yeah,
I agree.
That was good.
I also think that Genova's theme in this game is really good.
Yeah, but Genova's always been fucking popping.
Yeah, they've always been good. And I wasn't expecting to hear it, but One Winged Angel, this version of One Winged Angel is really good.
Was really good. The only reason I don't have it in my top 3 is because I've heard it like 5,000.
Yeah, but it's probably the best rendition of it since like the Distant Worlds one. Which is expected. When the tickets do go on sale, I will be going to the orchestra. I will be going to the concert.
When is it?
Should be in October.
Oh, I won't be here. Shit.
Hey, you can come. You know, just travel.
What, from Japan to the UK?
Hey, it depends if you're in Japan or not, man. Who knows?
Alright, from Preston to London. Bun that, bruv.
Just come for a day, innit?
True, you say. Yeah, but remember when you came for a day and how dead you were?
Fam, come like 2 days before. It's fine. Just listen. This will be a once in a lifetime thing. They are only doing one of these concerts. They are only doing one of them. I also like the new main theme. I think Hollow's. I wasn't a fan of it initially, but I really like it. Especially the Sector 5 rendition of it. You know what I'm talking about, Hollow.
Is that?
It's the one with the lyrics.
Oh yeah, I didn't really like that one.
Okay, that grew on me over time.
Yeah, I can hear it in my head now. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
That grew on me. I I can't wait to see what they do in the next few games regarding the soundtrack. I can't wait to hear Cosmo Canyon. Because that little bit that we hear in Red 13's theme is sounding pretty good.
You get a disc as well for Cosmo Canyon.
Yeah, you do. But they're like the weird like jazz renditions of the songs. Like I'm very happy with the way how they've done the music in this game. Like Final Fantasy 15 is so devoid of any kind of personality. I was really worried that this game would just be like everything is orchestral, nothing is like unique. But here we are, where we have like 3 hours worth of music. Like the soundtrack that they're releasing is $77. It comes on 7 discs, and it's going to be like 4 hours long.
I'm gonna have to get that, you know. I'm gonna have to get that.
Like it looks insane. Like I've never been more in love with a game soundtrack since like I don't know, probably since Doom, like the first Doom.
As far as video game soundtracks go, friendship ended with Capcom sound.
Yeah, no, hey, who cares? Well, Final Fantasy like Square have always like had good soundtracks, but this is like on such a high level. I don't know, man. This might have to be in my like top 5 of game soundtracks. And it's not just nostalgia. Like it's not. It all just sounds so good. And man, I can't deal with it. It's just too good, man. It's just too good. It's the one part of the game that like that was the one part of the game that if they messed it up, that I would have never forgiven them for it. But they didn't. They knew what they were doing, man.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're gonna talk about things like lockdown and shit. But I guess we'll leave that for another time.
Yeah, it won't be so long between.
Yeah, I was gonna say. One. Yeah.
It was just because. It's just because. Look at how long this. Listen, if you're listening to this right now, it's been 2 hours since this has started.
Yeah. So if you play and never stopped, you've been spending 2 hours of your life.
You've been listening to 2 hours of this garbage. Like, come on, man. So
you know, I think we had some good discussion, man. It ain't garbage. Come on.
Hey, listen. Whatever. They're listening. Here's the thing. We did this so that you wouldn't have to listen to this over the course of like 6 weeks.
That's true.
After this point, there'll be like 15 minutes of FF7 discussion in any podcast now instead of like 2 hours. Okay?
I don't know, man. I think I'm all done with talking about this game. You know, I think I'm gonna move on. To
we've got to talk about the Ultimania, man. That's gonna be fully translated soon. That thing is like 700 pages.
Fuck.
It's crazy how big that thing is. It goes through everything. Literally, I was surprised when they released that thing. Oh, okay, whatever.
Guess I'm buying it. All right.
Okay.
GG.
Yeah.
Catch you guys later.
All right. See you later. I'm gonna play a little track.